Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. I'm Steven Sersky, and this here is my language channel where I'm talking about all the different things that I'm doing in terms of languages. I'm supposed to be studying Chinese at the moment, and I'm not because I'm sick of it. I'm just absolutely tired. Worked all week and thinking, you know what? I need a day off. I did wake up, and even last night I was thinking, okay, get up, do the workout, and then you're going to hit the language studies 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m. You're going to sit down. You're going to do your characters. You're going to do your vocab review. You're going to sit down and, while still sitting, get through another one of these, start doing the grammar of these textbooks. And then when I sat down to do the grammar today, I was like, I don't want to do that at all. Not at all. So instead, I made a video. But I did spend some time actually reviewing what I want to do and what I have to do, because as the end of April is approaching, it's not, I mean, we got another week and a half left in April. The deadline to sign up for the HSK 5 paper-based test, I think, is May 14th or around there for the June test. So that means I want to have at least these books finished, if not finished, a good portion of the way being finished by May 14th, so I'll feel comfortable signing up for the test in June. I do this every now and then, wherein I don't focus on the language itself, but I do still look at my books, my textbooks. I kind of take into consideration how much I've done, how much more I have to do, and what I want to do going forward. I could have sat down today and pushed through with the grammar or the vocab, the writing practice, and I can still do some of that. I probably won't, though, because I did want to spend the time just going through it and reviewing some of this stuff, thinking, how far have I come along since I began these? And I think I began these back. Let me just check this. I have another book here. So this here is my actual notebook for the that I've been keeping track of some of the things, and there it is. HSK 开始4月27日. That's, and I think that is, oh my goodness, I should have written down the year, if you can see that. There you go. Oh goodness, what year is that? Wait a minute. I know where I can. Arling Nian. And the reason I know that is because the next page, I have it written down here with the next text. So this actually, these exercises here, these are the first couple of lessons from here. So I was copying them out with the idea that I was going to practice my writing, because the HSK 5 level test requires you to do much more writing than the HSK 4, and the HSK 3 doesn't at all. My idea with copying out the texts from the textbook was that I would get away from only focusing on the characters and instead start focusing on the sentences. The idea within that being I would learn the characters, I would learn the vocabulary, and I would learn the grammar all at once. Didn't work. It was very slow going, and it was horribly monotonously boring. I did get through a few of them. I started also, let's see, this is not 18, that would be, so April 5th, 2021, that is when I started taking classes with my teacher, I think. And that was Easter. Wow, that was last year. Let's see, I got up to, I just want to check, Die Schöke. 10th lesson. So I did 10 chapters of this, of writing out the texts and the vocabulary over on this side with the pinyin. No definitions, because the idea was that I would learn the definitions as I went along. Again, didn't work, got bored with it, stopped doing it. Not a failure, not a complete abject failure. If it's a failure, what was I trying to accomplish in the first place? Was I trying to write out every single lesson? Okay, if that was the goal, then yes, I failed. The goal was to practice writing and to keep going. And it was, especially when I do something like this, wherein I basically am just copying out what I'm seeing. I am not doing this in any sort of manner to how I'm looking more to be in contact with the language rather than learn any one thing. It's basic, simple language contact time. And that's what I was doing, just putting in the time, writing the characters, copying out sentences, and then making sure I actually wrote it out in a notebook, because that way I can look back at it over the years and go, okay, this is how much I've done. You can see these are some of the other exercises I did later on, HSK 2 and stuff like that. These were dictations. These were simple dictations. And the idea being with that is that I would listen to something, write down what I heard in Chinese, in the Chinese characters. And so you can see how many mistakes I'm making on that one already. Brutal. Brutal, I tells you. Again, contact time. Put in the time. That's what I figured. I used to track this all on a spreadsheet. I don't anymore, mainly because it just got to be, I had to be practicing all the time. There was no one time I could really focus on the language anymore. It was, if I have time in the morning, I'm going to listen to the radio. If I'm not working, then it's like 2 or 3 hours in the morning doing vocab work, practicing the writing, and going through the textbooks. This week, I finally went through what would you call it? All of these texts. So I got through chapter 36. This was the last one, Lao She and his flowers. So this is the last text in the series of these 2 textbooks that I read through them one time each. That was the goal that I want to do first. Next, I have to go through pretty much all of the grammar, chapters 14 to 36 in those 2 textbooks. I also want to continue writing out the characters from each chapter at least once. And I've been making screen recording videos of this. I've been posting them online as well. Again, that is just for my own reference, my own record. I'm not if someone else finds it useful, great. I don't think they will. But it is an effort, again, putting in the time, contacting the language, and making sure I have a record of what I've accomplished. It's very similar. It's not like a test. It's more like a language diary. What I've noticed, especially as technology has developed, it's gotten easier, it's gotten cheaper in so many ways. Like what you can buy now for $100, $500 blows away what you could buy years ago. And I don't think it's a good idea to ignore that. Instead, trying to embrace it, use it for our advantage as language students, for my advantage as a language student. The idea of making these records and then utilizing the language in the method, utilizing our target language in the method that we use our native or our naturalized language. For me, is English. So if I'm making videos in English, well, then can I make a video in Chinese, or at least about Chinese? I am not comfortable yet speaking Chinese on video just yet. I keep my speaking Chinese very much to the ephemeral daily usage that disappears with the moment rather than putting it down on record on camera just yet. I will get there. It is a challenge that I have to take up upon myself. But my focus, as I've been saying for pretty much my entire Chinese studies life over the last 3 years, especially, has been tackle the HSK books. So these are the standardized, simplified Mandarin Chinese textbooks, meant not just for foreigners, for all Mandarin learners. But the idea is to learn the characters, increase the vocabulary, and be able to read in Chinese, and then also be able to write a little bit more. Speaking has been sort of a secondary concern for me because I do live in Beijing, China. Being able to communicate with people is an obvious benefit. Going to buy milk or water, great to know what I'm asking for or what I need to ask or what they're saying when they're like, well, what kind of water do you want? And I'm like, this one, the blue one, the red one, the purple one, the green one. What's the green one? Yibao. That's Yibao. Nongfu is the red one, and the purple one is Chun Shui. Chun Shui. I can't remember what it is yet. The purple one. There's no blue one, I don't think. Blue one is Watson's, I believe. Anyway, so looking at that, speaking has always sort of been relegated to a very minimal role. Have not focused on it a lot. I used to have a language partner years ago. My Chinese wasn't good enough to have a decent conversation, a different conversation every time, right? Instead, focusing on the characters, and I want to get through the HSK 5 textbooks, and the test. Mid-June is the paper-based test that I want to take. I have to sign up for it May 14th, and so the crunch is on to sort of get through these textbooks. And going back to why I'm not focusing on studying the language exactly today, specifically, instead reviewing and looking over what I have to do, is because I want to know what I know, and I want to know what I don't know just yet in regard to, chapter 36, right? Because I haven't touched the exercises yet in this book, right? So with that, do I know it? Can I read these sentences with ease? This is not the same as with the exercises that I did before, where I've done all of them already, right? So I did this years ago, a couple of years, and finished that, and that was a struggle. How much more of a struggle do I have left with this book? So that's what I want to look at today. And I'm looking at it going, some of these words I actually know, some of the characters I know I've been picking up along the way. And this, I think this is part and parcel of the whole, if you spend the time, if you put in the time in contacting the language, not just with textbooks, but even outside of textbook usage, you're going to pick up a lot of words, especially if you're talking to people or reading native materials. The newspaper is one example, but newspapers are very difficult to read. They require a different reading skill set than a textbook does. Reading simplified stories, but even with my classes, my Chinese classes that I was going to for 6 months or so, picking up new vocabulary that way. We used a different textbook for that, actually. I'll show you that one. That one was the Shortterm Spoken Chinese. This one is made for foreigners living in China, typically living in China, because it's published by Beijing Language and Culture Press, University Press, so that's in Haidian District. That's where a lot of the Chinese teachers got schooled. That's where a lot of foreign students go to learn Chinese. There's BLCU and BFSU. Those are your two big Mandarin Chinese, your big language universities. Beijing Language and Culture University has many languages. So it's not just Chinese, it's like Russian, French, Japanese, Korean. They have faculty from all over the world, not just English-speaking teachers. BFSU, Beijing Foreign Language University, very similar actually. So the very similar, what would you call it, purposes. But Beijing Foreign, I think, deals more with the foreign languages than Beijing Language and Culture University. They deal more with the Mandarin, but they do have faculty from other languages, right? So other language studies. But this is the one that we used for class for 6 months. I got through most of it. I think I stopped going to class at chapter 10, chapter 11. Why did I stop going to class? Because, chapter 10. I did the vocabulary and then I stopped. The idea was that part of the reason I stopped going to class was because it was on Sunday mornings, which fit my schedule perfectly. But that would mean Saturday night I'd be spending doing my homework. And of course you'd say, well, Steve, do your homework before then. Don't do it last minute. And I go, well, yes, but that's all well and cool and good. The problem with that is that I have to work. And if I'm also working on these HSK 5 books, and these ones are a little bit more brain intensive than the spoken textbook, it's a lot of work, a lot of vocab, a lot of grammar, a lot of slow reading. And if I'm spending time on the HSK 5 stuff, then that means I'm not spending time on the spoken Chinese stuff. And therein lies the problem. Like, where do you find more time to work on these things? So I made the choice. I'm going to stop going to classes for now, and with the idea being that I'm going to only focus on HSK 5 materials right now, and then once I get past HSK 5, possibly return to classes in the fall and hopefully join the HSK 6 class that they have. But the HSK 6 class, I think, deals, like, they have a lot more people who've been speaking at HSK 6 level for quite a while, and it's by no means, you're not going in there to prepare, at least not at the beginning. You're going there once you are already at that level and are preparing to take the test, basically. So what I would have to do is actually start working on the HSK 6 materials prior to even going or enlisting in the class. So yeah, that's basically what I've been looking at today. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not worried about losing any time so much, so to say, because I do have to look at these. Actually, and there's one other thing I should show you here with these HSK 5 books, and it's these workbooks that I have to, oh, sorry, this is the teacher's book. The workbooks are over here, and these are something that I've barely even touched. Yeah, you can tell the amount of dust on them. Eesh. So there's these things I gotta get through. That's another teacher's book. This one's still in the packaging. Workbook. There. These are practice tests that I have to get through eventually. Oof. Brutal. Can you see that? Oh, nasty. 13 out of 31, 42%. That was February 6th, 2022. It's a Sunday. Brutal McDoodle. That is horrible. You're not passing the test with scores like that. And this is what you have to read. This is a practice test, basically, that they give you based on the content in the HSK 5 chapter. So those two, and I have two of those, and I only did up to Unit 5. I'm on chapter 13. Right, so this is the one that I still have to do. Chapter 13 is what I have to get through in the workbook, the first workbook. There's another whole series. So there's 36 chapters again with these. So let's review what I have to get done. I finished reading the texts for the HSK 5 books, so I've read through the texts once. I have practiced the vocabulary using apps like Memrise, Scritter, and Pleco. So now I have to work on the grammar exercises from chapters 14 to 36. And then I have to work through all of the workbooks themselves. So from chapters 13 to 36. I also have to finish, or what I should work on is writing out a 100 character paragraph for each chapter's topic. And that's because at the end of each chapter, they give you a topic to write about, one of these sort of extra writing things. And it says at the bottom here, you got to write 100 characters about, give your opinion of the chapter's topic. Have to do that. Then I should also do some practice tests. And I have one other book I remember I have over here. And this one, again, is also very dusty. And this one was recommended to me by my Chinese teacher, saying that if I was going to practice for the Chinese, the HSK 5 test in particular, this one is a good book to prepare for it, because all it does is deal with test prep, and that's what it looks like on the inside there. It goes through section by section, portion by portion of each of the sections, how to read the questions, analyze the question, understand, and then work your way through the given answers. So if you have A, B, C, D, how do you figure out which ones could or could not be the correct answer? I bought this especially because I wanted it to work. I want to work on the writing section, in which it gives you some model answers. And this is great because one of the little language hacks that I was thinking of, that I know that a lot of my students do, they memorize this. So and of course with my students, I think, don't memorize. Why don't you just use the language? Well, the reason why they don't is because it's bloody well hard. So I'm going to memorize the answers, and I'm going to figure out some formulaic language, as we called it in the ESL world, to learn how to basically write a bunch of sentences that are generic, standard, but all convey meaning in a grammatically proper way. Why not? If I get 90% of the writing correct, I'm okay with that. If I get 80%, good. 75 is I only need 60% to pass the test. On average. On average, not every section has to be above 60%. So that's the goal, and that's why I got this textbook. And yeah, that I've been dusting it off. Yeesh. It shows how much I've been using it since then. So there we go. We got test prep. We've got workbooks. We have got textbooks. We've got class textbook. And we've got my notebook. So that's all of my Chinese study material right there. And it's what absorbs my life every single day, pretty much. I'm thinking about it almost all the time. But it's a lot of work. I do feel like I'm making progress. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it is a good investment of my time. And certainly, if it doesn't pay off now, it might take a few years. And if it never pays off, then at least I'm not going to be that person who lived in China for X number of years and then doesn't know the language, which is a personal preference, a personal goal for me. I know a lot of people who come here, that live here for years, never learn the language. They don't want to. And that's fine. I understand that. But Chinese is a very difficult language and much harder than the Russian language, which is what also I've been studying. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks, folks, for watching. Appreciate it. We'll talk again. And since this is probably one of the first videos that I've done, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Cheers. Thanks for listening. Talk again. Bye-bye.